Hello. Welcome to part two of Hard Conversations That Are Worth Having. My name is Rasie. I will be your host and facilitator for this panel discussion. And before we do get started, I want to let you know that I'm joining in from Roberts Creek, located in British Columbia, Canada. It has a rich history that predates European settlement. For thousands of years, both the Sechel and Squamish peoples utilize this area seasonally. The region is blessed with several salmon-bearing creeks that drain into the Salish Sea. This is something that I learned about and I love to share with everybody. And it provides an excellent source of food. Who doesn't like salmon, right? And in acknowledging the traditional territory, we respectfully recognize the unceded land of the Sechel people and express gratitude for allowing us to live, work, and play on these lands. I invite you to pause for a moment and acknowledge where you're joining in from and show some gratitude or just like some space just to be in that space for a moment. And another acknowledgement that I do like to do is my ancestors. So, my ancestors migrated from Guinea, which is in West Africa, to Sierra Leone in West Africa as well. And I was born in a small town called Connaught, just outside of Freetown, Sierra Leone. And I'm grateful that my ancestors stood up for what they believe in. They paved the way and used their voice for the greater good. As a result of their actions, I'm here with you today, and I don't take that lightly. So, this event was birthed from many conversations I've been having with many leaders in my network, virtually and in person. It is a hot topic. I keep saying that because there's so many different ways to improve on it, to build on it. And the need for us to come, it even amplifies the need for us to come together and have these conversations. And I hope you're able to walk away with tools, with resources, listening from real lived examples from our leaders on the panel so that you're able to build your toolbox to be able to have these conversations with confidence and empathy. And so the leaders that we have with here today they have a lot of lived experiences. I'm excited to hear their stories, and I know you are as well. And I hope you receive more than you're asking for as you join us in this event. So before we unpack this topic, I do invite you to come as you are. Great things happen when we meet ourselves where we're at and pivot from there. Kick back. You can put your feet up, right? You don't have to put your camera on. You can put your camera on. It's really up to you. You can have your mic off and use the chat to let us know what's resonating for you as you listen in, right? And also, if you have any questions, I invite you to ask questions. We have three parts to this conversation. After the first part, we will pause to answer any questions from you in the audience. And again, we're here for you to help you with more resources to have hard conversations. Either it's in the workplace, in your community, in your personal relationships, whatever that looks like. We're here to provide those resources to you. And you can also use the raise your hand function. If you don't want to put your question in the chat and you want to ask boldly in the room, we could totally welcome that. It is recorded, so you can take notes if you like, and you also will be receiving this link to the video so that you can go back and reflect a little bit. So please come as you are. I am going to launch a poll. Let's see here. There we go. And this is just to get a feel of who's in the audience. So there's a couple questions. The first one is to know who's in the audience and then also which skill you like to improve on. And if you do choose other, please let us know in the comments like what specific skill you're looking to improve. What I know for sure is that when we know better, we're able to do better. Awesome. Oh, conflict management and boundaries are neck and neck. Which one is it going to be? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I'm going to close it in about 10 seconds. All right. Perfect. Okay. Wow. It's quite even across the board. Entrepreneurs in the room, organizational leaders, business owners, and managers. We're missing the aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs. They're not in the room today. And then so we'll probably start off with boundaries and expectations. It's kind of lean over a little bit. And so a little bit about me and RB Jumpstart Coaching, what we do before I get started with introducing our Jay, our support in the chat, and also our panelists. I do leadership training, coaching, and development for organizations. And also support authors with aspiring authors with their book development process, anywhere from idea to publishing. I have published 3 books. You can see them on my screen. I think it's on this side. Yeah, Lead in Your Truth, Heal on Your Terms, and Be Not Alone. I'm also a public speaker. And Jay is going to put in the chat our services brochure just to help you learn a bit more about what we do. So I'm going to pause there and move on to introduce Jay. And Jay is a 2021 graduate from a university in California, USA. He moved to Canada in 2023 and he began working with nonprofit organizations where he supported community focused initiatives and developed a deep commitment to helping others succeed. Since joining RB Jumpstart Coaching in 2024, Jay has been involved in organizing events, handling administrative tasks, and supporting communications work, among other responsibilities that help keep the organization running smoothly. I am so grateful for you. It's saying that is an understatement. Welcome, Jay, and thank you for holding it down in the chat for us. Okay, so next part here, let's get to it. Let's unpack this. So we're gonna start off with boundaries. I will start off with Danielle. You are in the room. Hello, Danielle. And Jay will spotlight you so that everybody can see you there. Perfect. So Danielle I'm just going to say a little bit about you and then you can take it away and unpack that. When I first met Danielle, she was one of the 30 plus authors who I connected with before I wrote and published my first book. And I love the fact that you made time for me and I asked you so many questions about the process and super grateful for you and having you in my network and in my community. So, Danielle, the first question here, I'm just going to roll back up here. And so you can introduce yourself to the audience and let us know how do you set clear expectations without micromanaging?
Hello,
All yours.
everyone. Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. And well, first of all, I'm Danielle Mantho. It's a privilege for me to be here today with all these great experts. So I'm a branding specialist, a business consultant, and the founder of D Dreams, where we have professionals, experts, entrepreneurs, and organizations to build unstoppable brands using what I call my 5C branding framework, which is clarity, consistency, creativity, collaboration, and community. So I'm passionate about helping people grow their visibility, specifically online, and also to get seen, heard, and to be paid. So I've had the honor of working with over 500 brands, from corporate executive to NGOs, helping them unlock opportunities by being, as I said, being seen, and positioned right. So more than personal, I believe branding is more than just logo and website and all those things. It's about legacy. It's about leadership and knowing who you are, especially in this noisy environment. So, the question you said, please, what was the question again? Rasie?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I know that's going to
Mm,
happen. How do you
okay,
set clear expectations without micromanaging?
okay. Thank you so much for. Okay, thank you for that
You're welcome.
question. Well, as you all know, I said I'm the CEO of Daydream. So most at times I have to deal with a team, and I've had the opportunity to kind of like work with more young people, you know, working with younger people, and sometimes it's difficult because these people are kind of like very young, so it's I think for me it's identifying clearly the 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 goals, right? What do we want to achieve? And what do we want to achieve? And delegating task, right? What do you want to achieve? And delegating task, and make sure I follow up with it. It can be quite challenging, right? It can be like at once I once worked with on a branding project with a client, and I had this team, right? Instead of copying, I wanted to kind of like make sure that I assign, it was a huge project. It was kind of a huge project, and with my team. So because micromanagement, that's what many people do in Africa, and it's about trust. So I would say it's about trusting your team, assigning the task, and believing they can do it rightly. So for me, it's trusting in your team, assigning them the task, and following up rightly. So I don't know if, yeah, I got that. So for me, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's your experience, right, Danielle? There's no
Mm,
right or wrong answer.
mm,
And thank you
mm,
so much for sharing that. There's one key thing that you said, that trust factor, and I love the fact that you shared about identifying in the goals, right? Because
mm, mm,
if you and your team are not clear on what the goals are, there's nothing to micromanage, right? We're just kind of doing circles
exactly.
and trying to figure out like, oh, we're going to get to this vision and mission, but we're not clear on what the goals are in leading us there.
Mm,
So thank you for that response. Well appreciated.
mm.
I'm going to move on to Miranda. Miranda, maybe I'll tell you the question after if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll say the question I learned from the first.
Just coming off mute here. Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda Beall. I'm an executive coach and a trauma-informed coach, which you can probably imagine go hand in hand more often than we think. I live in Gibsons, British Columbia, close to Rasie and Gabriel, actually, on the beautiful and unceded territory of the Squamish First Nation. In my work, I support leaders and teams and organizations who are going through some disruption and transition and emotional complexity, especially when the old playbook just doesn't work anymore. And we need to shift these bloody systems that are no longer serving us. So there's a lot of moving parts. We have multiple generations in the workplace. We have competing priorities, wide range of values and identities and lived experiences, and that all requires more strategy, more emotional awareness, curiosity, and the ability to lead with both clarity and compassion and boundaries. So you can ask me the questions about boundaries, and I can get into that as well.
I love that. I love that. And a little bit of like how I met Miranda, it was like through emails. I was collaborating with a few other ladies on the Sunshine Coast for a woman in business event, and I just remember your words and the energy you that came through with your words. And I'm like, I can't wait to meet her in person. And I met you in person. It was even more enlightening. So thank you for being who you are. And the question is, what strategies do you use to establish and enforce professional boundaries in leadership?
Thanks, Rasie. It was a pleasure to meet you too at that event. Uh, I think a lot of people see boundaries as barriers or really rigid lines in the sand, but I see them as ways to allow us to lead from a place of sustainability and steadiness rather than burnout. I think the first strategy I use is my own self-awareness. So I check in with myself. How am I feeling? What's happening in my body right now? Did I eat breakfast? Did I go for a walk? Am I feeling what's happening? Am I feeling resentful? Am I feeling scattered or depleted? If so, then that's going to be a sign that a boundary needs to be clarified and reinforced for me. Um, Good leaders model boundaries out loud. I've seen really strong leaders say things like, here's when I'm available and what I can help with, and here's when I need to take a break and go for a walk. That is a sustainable way of leading. Um, it's also that kind of clarity that doesn't create distance, but it builds trust. So back to Danielle talking about how important trust is. People know what to expect and where the edges are. I would also say that it's important to invite people into the conversation instead of just handing down these boundaries and like rigid restrictions and expectations. We invite them into conversation. We ask, does this timeline feel realistic? Does this boundary support you and the best work that you can bring to it? Also thinking in intersectionality, if you have neurodivergent folks on the team, their co-created structure and predictability really makes a huge difference for folks. Boundaries aren't one and done, they evolve. So I like to check in and ask, hey, how is it? Is it still working for you? Do we need to readjust? Um, it's being flexible, pairing it with that consistency that creates that foundation where people feel safe enough to be honest. That's what builds that team culture and protects what matters: time, energy, ability to show up well for the organization.
There's so much to take away there. Gonna pause for a second. I absolutely love the checking in part, right? Because you shared with checking in with yourself, right? Starting with self is very sustainable. And also, checking in with your team. I just wanted to highlight that for our audience. Thank you, Miranda, for that response. And for everyone who is joining right now, it is three parts to this panel discussion. Right now, we're unpacking setting boundaries and expectations with teams. And you're welcome to put in your questions in the chat. We'll come to it after the first part. I do invite you to do that. You get an opportunity to ask our panelists any questions that you have. And so we're going to move on to Gabriel. I met Gabriel at AGM for when I was on the board at the Sunshine Coast Chamber of Commerce. And I just remember us talking. It was like one topic, and then it was the next topic, and then it was another topic. And I'm like, I can just talk to him forever. And then we met in person again, and I was like, if this is not a sign that he needs to be on the panel, I don't know what is. So thank you for being here, Gabriel, and for the energy that you bring.
Thanks for having me, Rasie. Great to connect with everyone.
All right. So I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll ask the question. How about that?
Cool. Sounds great. So my name is Gabriel Mcckay. I'm calling in from Gibsons, British Columbia, here on the Squamish and Sechelt Nation. I'm very grateful to live in this place. I've been here for about 8 years, although I was born and raised in Vancouver. Um, and grateful to be a part of this community. And yeah, very grateful to have met amazing connections like Rasie up here. It's a beautiful community. And yeah, grateful to be a part of it. So a big thing for me, I started my digital agency built around website development, branding, and marketing. I started about 20 years ago. And it's kind of evolved with a core mission of trying to support value-aligned individuals and businesses. So for me, I was really passionate, almost like a environmental activist as a teen, and really wanted to find a way to try and get that energy out there. So I wanted to work with businesses that were doing something and take my skills and be able to shine a light on people that are doing great work. And so that's kind of where this was born. And as time went on, I kept adding on more hats, realizing that I had the skill set of a sort of jack of all trades, but also sort of connecting with people that were specialists in different areas to become sort of a like one-man business consultant. So I now have a team. Well, actually, this speaking of boundaries, I scaled up to a team of 12 in 2024, and then I scaled back to a team of five. I was too ambitious and also learned a lot of lessons. So I scaled up too quickly. And so there's a lot of lessons that I've learned in there, and there's a lot of gratitude that I have for those lessons, even though they were costly and numerous. But at this point, our business sort of helps businesses, even our core services, helping businesses figure out like just lead growth and figure out the pieces behind it, like how their stories resonating with their target audience, driving the roads to the website and the foundational channel, and then helping them figure out their systems if necessary. So we can help people on a wide variety of basis, and we work with businesses here on the Sunshine Coast regardless of budget. So even if they have $0, we'll work with them and at least give them some ways to continue working, and give them sort of tips and moving on how to move forward. So yeah, that's like a high level of what we do. And I'll let you give me the question, Rasie.
Yeah, I love that you already sharing about, having 12 employees and dialing back to five. It's so in line with this question. How do you handle employees who are consistently pushed back against expectations or boundaries?
Make sure you have an HR consultant.
Mm,
And ChatGPT can be taught to be a wonderful HR consultant. Um, I am probably the nicest employer when it comes to it. I let employees have so many freedoms, try to work minimal hours, give them benefits. When I started the company, I was like, this is going to be an employee-owned organization. I want to make this happen. These are the structures I'm giving you. And I gave everyone everything and trusted in them and fully. And that trust was taken advantage of. Now, you'd think that'd make me cynical, but it did not. In fact, it just made me set stronger boundaries, both around my expectations of them, clearly communicating what those expectations were, and clearly communicating my boundaries that, hey, this money spigot will turn off if you guys take advantage of this business and if we're not contributing and making this happen. And so here's what you need to do to be able to stick around in this company. And if not, I need to adjust that relationship. And so boundary setting was not something I was ever good at personally, and I had to learn. But business taught me so much on setting boundaries. And yeah, HR consultant, I think I pay like $50 a month for an HR tool and software. Plus, they give you like a 24-hour support line. And that's like worth its weight its gold in gold. And now ChatGPT has become my new support and run everything by ChatGPT before, or sorry, my custom GPT that I built to be my HR consultant that knows all the specifics. And then yeah, anyways, that's my number one suggestion. Get someone to build you a custom GPT for HR because seriously, so important.
yeah. And it gets challenging too when Miranda mentioned that earlier with like different personalities, different lived experiences, right? Everyone who's on your team. My brain, I'm like, oh, I want to know more about this. Like, there's probably some people in the audience. You said stronger boundaries. Are you able to share like an example of what that looked like?
Yeah, so I want to let people have the opportunity, and if I give them the full-time hours and they're not hitting their full-time hours, then we're going to adjust the expectations so that your hours are no longer full-time. You're now an hour-based contractor. And that's got to be the way that things are done until you prove that you can commit to doing those hours that you set forth in the commitment. So rather than harping on them and be like, oh, you missed 10 hours this month, and like just instead trying to like have that conversation and make sure that it's clear, and also giving them opportunities, and also setting those boundaries as soon as possible. As soon as you see things start to slip, being able to like take note of it and give a documented response to like, hey, you've done this thing. This is me being like, please don't do that thing. Because if things progress to the point of that employee deciding to take advantage of BC labor laws or anything like that, you have no documentation unless you have that in place. So the actual
Mhm.
boundary that I set in place was one for myself first, was like making sure that I document that rather than trying to be the nice guy of like, oh, it's okay, I'll talk to them on their 3 month review or something like that. Instead, it's like, no, 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 hey, this is a thing. Don't do this. It's all good. Like, don't worry,
Mhm.
but don't do this. This is not okay. This is what you should do instead.
That's really awesome. Thank you. So that's such a great example to keep in mind. And I love the fact that you've mentioned a custom chat GPT, because using a generic one, it doesn't work for everyone and you got to ask it smart questions, etc. And I'm sure you could probably help people with that as well. Just saying.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we lots of custom GPTs that we've built for like, specific buyer personas or HR personas, and bit tailoring it to your business, giving it the
Mhm.
documents that you've built to be able to give it that information is huge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabriel. All right, we're gonna go to Gabby. Me and Gabby have worked on so many projects and so many things, and it's really great to call you a really close friend, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I can't even count how many projects we worked on when we worked together at ISSO BC, and I know like for a long time I've been wanting to collaborate with you in a space like this because you have such a rich leadership background. So I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll ask the question.
Thank you, Rasie. Thank
You're
you. The words
welcome.
mean the world to me. As Rasie says, we're great friends and I really enjoy our friendship. So thank you. This is really meaningful for me to be here. So thank you for having me. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Gabby Korcheva. I guess a little bit about my background. I started off as a bit of a social entrepreneur working in Vancouver's downtown east side. I helped co-found a nonprofit called Binners Project. They're still running. You can look them up. It was around sustainability and also working with binners, who are also known as bottle pickers, in Vancouver, and setting up a social enterprise. After many years there, I moved over to Immigrant Services of BC, working on immigration issues and again in the nonprofit space. And just a little over a year ago, I made a change once again, and now I work for BC Public Service. So in K to 12 education. So I've been changing sectors approximately every 5 years, and it's just totally fitting with my personality because I think for me, what matters more than attaching myself to a particular sector is being with the right people. I'm a huge extrovert, and I get energy from being around other people. So that's a little bit about me, and maybe I'll pass it back to you, Rassi, for the question.
Awesome. All right. And Gabby, I know with this question, you moved from, in person to a hybrid, sorry, remote and then hybrid, right? So it's very aligned with in regards to your experience. So in a remote or hybrid work environments, how do you set and maintain communication boundaries?
Thanks for that question. Yeah, I've throughout maybe the last 10 or 12 years, I've worked in a combination, both remote and hybrid all throughout. So starting from my downtown east side days where we lacked a physical location, so it necessitated some hybrid work. I would say the most critical and challenging part of remote work or even hybrid work is missing the body language, the physical cues that naturally will regulate conversations that we may have one-on-one. And that's something that myself identifying as an extrovert, I particularly miss. And so there's things you can do to address that. So a couple of the things that I've kind of noted down for myself specifically is really setting up expectations from the get-go. And that, from my perspective, is something that you co-create with your team. So, for example, I recently joined a role like about a year and a couple months ago, and my team really told me what their boundaries already were, and I also adapted to myself, like I adapted myself to their boundaries, and introduced them to some other ones. So, for example, one thing that was new to me but works really well in our team is status indicators. So whether you use Teams or Slack channels, making your calendar visible, ensuring others you're checking people's calendars and availabilities, and respecting, for example, if somebody put up their do not disturb setting, that you're respectful of that. And so that's something that's been new learning for me, but really, really valuable because it's introducing, like to me, that's the most keystone piece around respect. Especially when you're setting boundaries, respect and trust are probably like like the pillars that kind of hold everything up. We currently use some structured communication channels, so we have specific channels dedicated to specific topics, and that also allows for visibility for particular people, so nobody gets missed and it's not chaotic. And that can often happen both in physical, like when you're fully in person, but I think there's more risk when that happens in a remote or hybrid situation because you can't hear conversations in the hallway. You're not sitting in the office with somebody else. So I think there's more risk associated with people not being in the loop about things that they need to be in the loop on. Sometimes I hear from people around personal schedules and time zones. So, for example, I've had roles in the past where people prefer to work in the evenings or weekends. And to me, as a personal role, I think that just doesn't work. It works differently for everybody. But because you, as a leader, you're setting up expectations and a precedent around what's okay and what's not okay. I think as a leader, I advocate like keep your messages within the working hours, whatever that is established for your team, and be explicit around like what's really urgent or immediate needs and what is something that doesn't need to be urgent. So even sometimes if I'm sending something first thing in the morning or something that may be important but not urgent, I will mark it out that way. And again, it helps with that boundary setting, I find. And that kind of ties into that, like model the boundaries you want to see. Some you don't necessarily have to speak everything out loud. I have a master's of adult education, and often that was something that was kind of underscoring a lot of my formal education is we're all adults here. And so being respect, again, it goes back to that respect thing. It's like model it. We don't need to set ground rules necessarily. We're all understanding of one another. We all know we have lives outside of the work too. And so it's being really like respectful again around personal boundaries, the timing, scheduling. And then when there is a boundary violation, address it compassionately. Like it happens all the time. We're not perfect. That's another thing I will always say. I can't be a perfect person because I'm human. And so nobody else, I shouldn't expect that from anybody else. It's just have a conversation about it because that kind of goes into some of the future questions we may like have in this 2 hour meeting. But it's really just around respect and compassion and not holding ourselves up to impossible standards. So having a conversation about the impact, not making it a big deal when it isn't. And so it's just a rhythm as opposed to rigid rules. It's a rhythm that you set up for everybody, and that's permeable and shiftable over time as things change, as new people come and go from the team. So I find that those are the things that work for me in a remote, particularly in a remote setting.
Ooh, I hope everyone's taking notes. I was like typing and I'm like, ooh, this is hot. There's a lot of great information. I love the common theme of trust and respect that keeps coming up. It's really awesome. And one thing I wanted to highlight as well, Gabby, from what you shared, it's not a one way, right? Like leader setting the boundaries, but it's also what are my employees' boundaries, right? It's a two-way street. We're working together and collaborating. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. All right, so we're gonna go to Lilian. Hello, hello. If you are joining in, please put questions in the chat. Anything that you want us to address and you want us to help you with your next steps. And if you don't want to put in the chat, you can send a message directly to Jay. If you don't want people to know that you asked that question, that's completely fine as well. And so Lilian, LinkedIn actually brought us together. I got like a notification on my LinkedIn saying that, oh, you went to Canada Coach Academy, and so did Lilian. Suggesting that we connect. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me drop a message. And we hopped on Zoom and we were just chatting forever. And I'm pretty sure our time was up, and then we extended it a little bit. And then we found out that, there's somebody else I could connect her with, like just great energy, and you bring the light. Like that's what's up. I will pass it to you to introduce yourself, and then I'll ask the question. Thank you, Lilian.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Lilian Tuhumwire Mubangizi, and I am a future-ready leadership educator, but I also work in healthcare. I'm also a leader in healthcare. And I'm calling in today from the traditional unceded territories of the Lheidli First Nations, otherwise known as Prince George. And I'm so grateful to be here. At first, when I moved to Canada, I was always complaining about the cold, but I'm appreciating the nature here. There's so many lakes, so many beautiful places and outdoor activities. So I'm very grateful to live, work, and play in these lands. I've also founded a leadership and training organization called The Future of Leadership. And the aim for this is to equip entry to mid-level leaders with skills to be ready for the future of work. As Gabby was talking about remote work settings, leadership there may look different. And leading, Miranda had also talked about how at this time we're all leading multiple generations. So how do we prepare for that, and how do we make sure that we are as inclusive as we can be, but also be able to have clarity in what leadership looks like in those environments. So I teach coaching skills, tech skills, communication, using data for decision making, and also enabling leaders to use data to actually predict what the future of their company is like. I'm very, very excited to be here in this conversation already. I'm also taking notes from the panelists, so I'm very happy to be here.
Me too, Lilian. Have you ever struggled with setting personal boundaries as a leader? So that's the first part of the question. Second part, how did you overcome it?
Yes. This question for me is one that kind of speaks to me more deeply, because growing up in a Tanzanian household, I was the firstborn girl. There's expectations of taking care of others. And so when it comes to like servant leadership, that was kind of what I grew up with, that you give your all to and everything to the people that need. And that meant that I was very generous, but my generosity was not sustainable. So then I found myself taking on a lot of work, and finding myself in situations where I think I'm helping my team, but actually I'm developing dependency because I'm taking on so much of their work, and I'm not setting that clear boundary on how we should work together. So one of the things that I did, I think it was like 5 years ago, I did an emotional intelligence test, and assertiveness was my lowest score. And so I did a reflection exercise on, I reflected on how my lack of assertiveness was actually impacting me and also the team. And some of the questions, I'll share some of the questions that I did in my reflection. And it was, if you're more assertive, how would that help your team be more innovative and tolerant of risks? And the second question was, describe a scenario in which you behaved as an assertive leader. What specifically did you do or say that was assertive? How did this impact the team and the outcome? And what's one conversation that you've been avoiding having this week? So these questions help me reflect on my own behaviors and create a plan on specific things that I could be assertive on. The first thing for me was looking at what are some of those personal boundaries that I am having challenges communicating. And for me, it was meetings. I work in the public sector. There's so many meetings. You get called to so many things that nobody even asks, should I be here? And so now as a practice, I always ask, do I need to be here? And what am I needed for? So that I can make sure that I actually am in the space that I'm more useful, instead of just being there for the sake of having a warm body. So that has really helped me. And I also, in my calendar, I set out clear, like, do not book at this time. I have also created a schedule for myself where I don't have meetings the first 2 hours of the morning, so I can actually do concentrated work. And then people can book meetings after that. So I think that helped me with having clarity on what do I need. And energy management for me was so important. And to manage, I am the most energetic in the morning. So that is where I need to do the focus work. So I created a schedule that worked in terms of how I work as a person, as a leader. But also this helped me create more space and time to actually spend time with my team and not spend the whole day just in meetings. The other thing is looking at how me being assertive helps my team. With what I noticed with my team, I think there was a low tolerance for risk. And I think as me modeling assertiveness helped people speak out more, challenge the status quo, also communicate their own boundaries and needs, and trusting that will be trusted. I mean, that would be respected. Like Gabby mentioned, it is important for you to model the expectations that you have. And if you're expecting respect of your boundaries, you also as a leader need to respect people's boundaries. I also do not message, call, email anyone past working hours. And even in my email, I have very clear, I always try to like, what was the point of this email? So everything that I say, it's like, this is the context. This is the context, and therefore this is the action that is needed. So that has been really helpful. I always think about, am I being assertive? Am I being clear? And making sure that in that I'm also respecting my own time. There are times, obviously, you will have to be more flexible and give more and maybe find yourself in situations where you're less assertive. But I think for me, because assertiveness was my biggest thing, that was what I needed to work on. So I think when it comes to setting personal boundaries, you need to first identify where do you struggle the most with boundaries. And you may struggle with boundaries maybe in your personal life, but you don't at work. So having really clarity and self-awareness in what that looks like. And I found that we kind of do mirror who we are everywhere. Like wherever you go, there you are. So if you're struggling with personal boundaries in your personal life, you're likely struggling with that. And also having grace for yourself and grace for others. It will be a learning curve for everyone. But yeah, self-awareness, recognizing it, setting up a clear plan of how to move forward, and then modeling that for the team and inviting the team to also do the same. I also have a work with me document. That's also been a very great tool for me to actually set clear expectations on how we work together from the beginning. Yeah, thank you.
Ooh, that was nice. That was nice. Thank you. Thank you. I love your emphasis on that self-leadership. I love it. And Miranda mentioned that as well with that self-awareness piece, right? And the checking in part, and okay, mornings are my power, that's when I'm like lit. Right, you didn't say lit, but I can picture you being lit in the morning. Yeah. And you're like, okay, let me do concentrated work at this time. And I love that you encourage your team to challenge the status quo. We need more people to challenge the status quo. We need more people to challenge leaders in their roles, and leaders need to challenge your teams more often, right? So thank you for that. There's so much to take away. Thank you, Lilian. And for our audience, so if you go to the three dots on Zoom, there's a more button, and then there's a react button. Can you tell me how you're doing right now? You can use any emoji. Just let us know how you're coming in. Okay, I see hearts. I see celebration. We're clapping. That's awesome. Oh, we're here. That's awesome. And another thing you can do for me, you can send your questions directly to Jay in the chat. You've heard responses from our leaders on the panel right now. Maybe you have follow-up question. You want to get to know a little bit more. I invite you to send your questions directly to Jay, or you can put it in the chat. We're going to go to the second part. I don't think we have any questions yet, Jay. I'm just making sure. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so our next part is managing conflicts with employees, colleagues, or clients. So we're going to start off with Gabby. I believe, yes, we're going to start with Gabby. Gabby, what are the most common mistakes leaders make when handling workplace conflicts? This could be from your experience, from what you've observed. or even, leaders that you manage on your team?
Sure. I love this question. Workplace conflict is challenging, but when you do it, it can be also rewarding. When you receive that resolution, even if it's not 100% what you want it to be. So, a couple of things to be on the lookout is don't avoid discomfort or also rush. So you're trying to strike this timing. It's a lot of this can come down to timing. And that's something you can learn through experience. Like we can take tips, but you just need to get into it. So the first and probably the foremost piece of information I can provide is waiting too long to intervene. So sometimes we hope that conflicts will just resolve on themselves. In my previous response, I said, "Hey, we're all adults here," but sometimes small issues can also escalate when they're left unaddressed. And as a leader, it's important that you speak up. Some others may not feel empowered to speak up, so that is a responsibility you take on as a leader. So if you wait too long, positions can have hardened, and it actually can be like a longer road for a resolution. And then you factor in emotions that could be running higher. So I said timing, right? So don't avoid the discomfort. Also, don't rush. So don't rush to take sides too quickly. Try to be as neutral as possible. So there's a tendency to align maybe sometimes with the person that you have a stronger relationship with. There might be that bias. It's impossible for us to be unbiased. No human can be totally 100% unbiased. So just having that awareness is really important. And that can undermine your credibility. And make the other party more defensive. So don't rush either. Um, this one is probably like a really big one for me is don't focus on personalities, focus on behavior. So we are not a product of our behaviors over a long term, sure. But we are, like I said earlier, we're all human. We can all make mistakes. That's no big deal. So when you say, like, for example, so and so, like John Doe, is just being difficult, or so and so has anger issues, you're talking about their character and you're not talking about the specific behavior or the action that they just took. And then that can make resolution so challenging, hurtful, emotional, where it doesn't need to be. You can't change who you are, and that's not what we're here for in a workplace. So you're just trying to look at changing behaviors or specific actions. And then maybe like I have some notes typed up, but here I think the last one I'll kind of focus on is try as best as you can to understand the root cause. So that means taking in more time to listen. And again, that's that balance of not rushing, but also not avoiding, is try to look at like, is this behavior a symptom of something else? Like dig in, ask questions, sit in the silence, like don't just quickly jump and try to fill in sentences, like sit in your silence and figure out like what is really the issue here. Like, is it about this late assignment or missed deadline, or is it something a little bit bigger? And then you can kind of do that work around like understanding the sides and getting into that conflict management piece.
Mm. Oof. Your approach, it's the curiosity is like that skill that I'm like highlighting from all that you shared with like the timing, not rushing, behavior versus personality, getting to the root cause. Like you need to be curious as a leader to be able to be patient and see that through. And I love the neutral aspect as well. I think we can even do that for ourselves when we're facing self-conflict, right? Like be neutral, like just be objective. Thank you, Gabby. It is again a lot to take away from your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasie.
You're welcome. And Miranda, how do you approach a situation where two employees are in conflict with each other?
Oof, good question. um, when we're all so different, again, back to different experiences, different lived experiences, different generations. When people are in conflict, I say we need to just slow everything down. It's natural to want to jump in and go into that mediation or fix it mode, but real resolution or real problem solving, we have to make sure that there's emotional readiness. So taking that trauma-informed leadership lens, we're checking to make sure that if there's any signs of emotional activation right now, because we know that if either of them are in a reactive state, their prefrontal cortex goes offline and they are in a reactive lizard brain state. So that might mean that someone's voice is getting louder and their body language is heightened, their adrenaline is going, they're getting agitated, maybe they're interrupting. These are the classic signs of fight or flight. Or maybe it's the opposite. People are getting really quiet, they're shutting down, they're curling up, they're avoiding eye contact, they're just wanting to freeze and fawn out of the situation. So neither of these states are wrong. These are protective nervous system responses. But it's hard to have a meaningful conversation and address the conflict when people are in this reactive state. So my first step is always giving a little bit of space. Space, space. This is where magic happens. It allows people to just take a pause, deep breaths, slow it down. Maybe people have that adrenaline that they need to go for a walk and just shake off. Maybe they need to take some time away. Maybe they need to ground themselves back, take some water, look for 5 green things in the room, whatever it is that's going to help them stay in their bodies and allow that prefrontal cortex to come back. And I check in with the individuals individually. We might ask, what's going on for you right now? What's helped you in situations like this before? What do you need? What does support look like for you? And then once both people are regulated and you are regulated, because that's the other thing, is leaders get heightened and overreacted just as much as the people in conflict do. Then we bring them together and we look to see, like Gabby mentioned, what's underneath. What's this conflict all about? What's the root cause? It's not usually the presenting issues. It could be a values clash, big one, a boundary violation. It could be that emotional story, an old emotional story that keeps getting triggered over and over. So you bring them back together when they're safe to open up and talk. Let them speak about their own experience using language that helps them to understand a lot of the I feel language. We're not blaming. And I set the tone as the leader. I'm setting the tone. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about how do we move forward in a way that's going to honor both perspectives and find a solution together.
I'm just pausing with that. I love I did that intentionally with the space, right? There's so many answers in a space. Like just give space, space, space. That's one key thing that I got from your response there. And also that emotional readiness. It's so important to check in. What's our temperature? Thank you, Miranda. There's again a lot to take away. I hope we're all taking notes because I am. So our next question is for Gabriel. Have you ever had to de-escalate a major disagreement with a client? If yes, what worked?
Yeah, yeah. I'm really good at this. I'm really good at not even getting into that problem because I used to have such loose boundaries that I would be like, just let the client walk. If he's upset, oh, whatever, just eat the money, like it's not worth the trouble, A happy client is the goal. Over time, set more boundaries, but a specific situation where I had to de-escalate, it was kind of my fault. So I'll admit some fault there and start there. I'll talk about the experience and I'll afterwards tell you the lessons that I took from it and the pieces that I remembered. So the first thing is I was on a field trip with my son and probably like 11 or 12 other third graders, and I'm one of the parent liaisons for this. I get a text from a client. It's like, "Oh, I got this invoice I haven't paid. I thought you were just gonna, you know, give me this for free. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, like it's all good. Just like zeroed out the invoice, did it on the spot, said it's all good, don't worry about it. Another like 5 minutes goes by, he sends me a text message. By the way, I'm waiting for an apology for something else. And I was like, what? Like just like went into like, responsive, emotional, all in my emotion, just responded. Didn't like filter it or anything. I'm normally so good at that. But I responded. It's like, what do you mean apology? Still trying to be this, but like, and then he got heated, and then I got more heated, and then it's like I basically like, it's fine. You take your business elsewhere. I don't want to be dealing with this. Like, they got to that, we're parting ways. That whole thing went down, and rather than de-escalating in the moment, I was, in this field trip moment, but it didn't sit with me. And rather than just being like, oh, that's a lesson lost, I didn't feel right about it. I felt that I contributed to it, so I at least sent him a voice note. I sent like 3-minute voice memo the following morning, acknowledging my own part in it, saying I apologize, not for the past thing, but more just like for how I showed up in that moment. Just tried to bring compassion and humanity and vulnerability. Um, Grateful for the men's work that I've done that's given me that capacity to be able to like just, hey, it's all good, let the ego go. And he stepped up with the exact same energy. And he's like, I wasn't sitting right with this either. And then a client and me are back together and everything was all good. So the big lessons that I got from that is really making sure that you acknowledge the times when your stupid monkey brain does stupid monkey stuff and pointing that out. The ego doesn't have to be involved. We all have stupid monkey brains. I'm not just me. You have a stupid, and you, we all have stupid monkey brains. And it's kind of funny to laugh at it sometimes, and it can take off the edge. So bringing that vulnerability combined with humor and just authenticity, hey, I showed up like this. I'm not perfect, but I can recognize that I was wrong, and I don't want to show up like that. That does not sit well with me. And that's the way I proceeded to move forward out of that one. That was the biggest lesson. And the second lesson is, I think, is Miranda talking about just like let prefrontal cortex just chill out. Don't respond right away, which I've learned that lesson over and over and over again. But sometimes it still happens, right? It still happens. And so that was one of those moments, more recent. This is like in the last 6 or 7 months that this happened. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability to share that story with us. I really appreciate it because I know myself and many other people in the audience can relate. Like this has happened to me maybe in a different context, right? And identifying that our ego sometimes wants to take up space where we can say no. Like, just chill out. I usually kick mine to the curb. I'm like, I'm gonna put you in a box and you're just gonna go to the curb.
Yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
one last thing I want to add is that like
Yeah, for
that
sure.
vulnerability
Hmm.
is, I think, probably my biggest asset in when I'm
Hmm.
having conversations with people because I'm
Yes.
showing up authentically, I'm being vulnerable, and I'm just being myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not trying to put on this image of some business professional and I know
Hmm.
everything and I'm perfect and my company is perfect. Like we're great. We do our work great, but at the end of the day, we're humans and there's HR
Hmm.
issues, and like why not talk about that stuff, right? Not just be like, oh no, this is our success story. I could have just
Hmm.
been like, oh yeah, I have a 12-person team, and like not mention the part that we scaled back. But like that's a part of the reality is like you if I was better prepared, if I had done this, then maybe it would have been gone a different way, but that's the way it
Hmm.
went. And I could either be really upset about it or I can acknowledge.
Hmm. And I think it's inspiring too, right? You're letting other people know that, hey, it's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to acknowledge that, I made this mistake and I'm gonna learn from it and do better. So thank you. Thank you for that example. Lilian, when should a leader step in to resolve a conflict versus letting employees work it out themselves?
Hi. So first, rarely do workplace conflicts come up out of nowhere. If you're noticing, there's been something's going on for there. So if you're wondering whether you should intervene, I think the answer is yes. If you ever find yourself in that situation, the worst is to ignore it. And what I want to highlight here is the mindset to approach how you intervene. So I think coming into it with a mindset of coaching and modeling how to navigate conflict for your team is so important. Like Miranda has already covered, the being objective and asking questions, staying curious. I also want to highlight the word resolution. We talk about conflict resolution and have the expectation that it needs to be resolved. Some conflict will not be resolved and can be managed. So being able to clarify what that looks like when you've reached the point where you've done the conversations and now we're planning a way forward. What does it look like? Are we resolving or are we managing? How do we set up professional? How do we work together professionally? One of the things that I think to be more specific about when you should be involved is if it affects productivity, if it affects team dynamics, if you can see there's increased like palpable stress, increased absenteeism, presenteeism, and if the conflict has escalated to a point where it wasn't just a regular conversation, there's some sort of outward expression of the conflict, then definitely you should intervene. I think most of the time, actually, we have more of a problem of most leaders struggle with ignoring rather than intervening. Like most leaders are on the side of ignoring instead of not intervening at all. So it's better to intervene and approaching it with that mindset of coaching and enabling and always thinking about what skills do you need to also give your team to empower them to be able to actually deal with these conflicts without you needing to intervene in the first place. One of the things that I think about is the concept of teaming, which shifts from that hierarchical sense of leadership to collaborative team accountability. And I think conflict resolution is a great place to actually encourage teaming. And one of the things I do is I actually offer, if there's a conflict going on, my first question after people have calmed down is, do you want me to be involved in this conflict? Or is this something that you guys can solve on your own? And that's been powerful. A lot of times, actually, people have questions on how should I approach it? I prefer to have the one-on-one conversation. How do I need to approach it? Or if they need another person, they know that I'm there, but giving them the option that just because I've heard of it doesn't mean it needs to be solved by me. Or I need to be involved. Or if there's another person on the team that they feel would actually be a better middle person or someone that can facilitate that. So giving that option straight from the get-go actually really helps with encouraging team accountability. And I think especially in conflict situations, we tend to freak out, but I think they're a great opportunity for the team to actually learn and practice how to work together. Some conflict is needed, and creating that safe space where people can actually disagree, I think needs to start proactively before it grows into this big explosive conflict. So I do think if you're wondering, you do need to address it, but I think it's the mindset that you come in it that's important, having that coaching mindset, staying curious. And also, you need to also always model the behavior that you want to be shown. So engaging in conflict yourself is something that you shouldn't be doing as well, in terms of how you speak to your employees, how you speak to your team. So modeling the behaviors that you do expect, and setting the tone for the conversation and engagement going forward. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lilian. There's there's always that, I don't know how to say it, that just pokes like the thought. Can you share maybe an example? I know it was just maybe a couple minutes. Share an example of when you stepped in, had you mediated the conflict, and what was the outcome? Can you share with us an example, just so our audience can relate to it? Because you've given a lot of great steps and takeaway.
Yes. So I think conflict, it's that, especially when I see that, I feel like sometimes your biggest weakness becomes the area which you face the most issues. So I have inherited a team in the past that was just full of conflict. There was so much conflict there. most managers actually left because of that team. And so it wasn't a one-on-one conflict. It was the whole team had conflict with each other, with leadership, with everything, with the system. So what happened is I was a new manager, and for the first month, I had multiple sites. So for the first month, I just focused on building relationships and building trust with the team, understanding that there is conflict and just getting to hear them. And something that came up is that they never got an opportunity to actually talk to someone else about what was going on and get that support. So that was the first start, to just hear everybody out. Staff meetings became so heated. And so for me, I was always reflecting on what are the patterns, what is that root cause that's coming up for people? Because sometimes you would be the one that identifies the root cause. Sometimes people don't actually know what the root cause is. They know the emotions that they're going through. And then, so as we had I had regular check-ins with the whole team and with people individually, and set expectations around how are we going to actually engage with each other. We're in a situation where with this conflict that's happening every day is not going to get solved, because it's not a one incident thing. It's not going to get solved right away, but we need to set ground rules on how we move together. So in those conversations, what was so interesting that came up is that the conflict wasn't actually that people didn't like speaking to each other or people didn't like each other. The conflict was that, I work in healthcare. This was a clinic set up on an overdose prevention site. The site did not have a clear operational manual. So every different leadership changed how the site ran, and every single person had their own belief of what the values or how we should run the clinic. One of the things that the clinic was, it was low barrier. So what low barrier meant to everyone was so different. So then realizing that, we had to first align on like, what is the purpose? What are we actually doing here? What are the expectations? So it highlighted to me that the conflict wasn't because it was a lack of systems, basically. That's what it was. It was a lack of systems and structure. And I was only able to realize that because I actually took time to observe the conflict. It was one of those situations where I couldn't just jump in and be like, oh, let's all talk and let's solve it. I had to just let it unfold. And sometimes things do need to blow up. And so within 3 months, we sort of created a plan on how we can, how we form those structures and all those things. And then once those things were set up, it highlighted the other smaller things that were going on, and there were few key conflict people. So then I had to deal with those key people who were causing a lot of conflict or had conflict with each other, and kind of do the same process that Miranda had talked about, have separate conversations, bring them together. For them, they did not have the skill to be able to deal with conflict without a middle person. So I became that middle person for them. And it was interesting because a lot of them asked, I work in a union environment, and when the manager is involved, it's disciplinary. What they had asked me is it okay if we have this conversation as without the disciplinary part? So is it okay if we actually, they almost ask for grace before the conversation, because once discipline gets involved, then people create a lot of resentment. And being new, I said, you know what? Let's pretend that I'm not the manager. Let's have this conversation. Literally, I had to do them. Like, let's pretend that I'm not the manager. And that sometimes, yes, we can be stickler for rules, that these are the policies and this is everything. Sometimes you actually do need to let all of that go, because the aim is for people to get along. People are so passionate, but they lacked structure, and that wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault that they didn't have structure for all these years. So I had to make that decision to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be Lilian, the chilled girl, and address it. And honestly, right now, it is the team that I'm shocked at how much we've been able to resolve and work together and improve the program. So sometimes you do come in and you feel the need to resolve. You need to just let it be. Don't ignore it, but you observe patterns and think structurally, is there something that's causing this that's not on a personal level? And also not taking things personally. It's because your teams are in conflict, it doesn't mean you're failing. There's things to learn, there's skills to be built there. So view it as an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for growth for yourself and your team as well. That was very long-winded.
Ooh. There's just this thing in my brain. It's like there's more to this. Like we need to hear more. And we've seen the emojis reactions on the screen. Thank you for that, Lilian, elaborating a bit. And I love the fact that you're calling leaders to observe the conflict. And that can be uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable because we want to just fix things, right? We want
Yeah.
things to be good right now. And sometimes, again, it comes back to that space aspect, right? Like give space, like Miranda said earlier,
Yeah.
and be uncomfortable. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Thank you, thank you. Chris had a question, but before I go to Chris's question, I'm gonna move on to Danielle with the last question on this section, and then we'll move over to the questions in the chat. Danielle, what's the best way to rebuild trust after a difficult conversation with a team member?
Okay, amazing question. Thank you so much for your brilliant contribution. I'm enjoying it. So, well, rebuilding trust after a tough conversation or a conflict is, like Lilian said, it's not a one-time fix, you know, thing, and it's a journey. What I've learned so far um, is what matters most isn't the conversation itself. It's what happened after. Maybe the follow up, the tone, the energy you bring back into the room. So Gabriel spoke about authenticity, vulnerability. Yeah. So for me, I always start by checking in privately, privately and also personally with the people involved. So something like uh, as maybe as simple as I know that conversation, maybe just getting to them and say, I know that the conversation earlier might have been very, very hard, and I care about you. And I would love to hear, for example, how you felt about it. That already shifts the dynamic. It shows that to the other party that you really care about them, and you're leading from a place of power and care and also responsibility as maybe as a leader. So then when I ask that question, I truly listen without interrupting or without planning, any response in my head, just listening. People like to, giving them that opportunity to explain, so because oftentimes what actually breaks that trust isn't just what was said, but the feeling of not being heard or respected. So if I was wrong, for example, I would take accountability. And I've had to say something like maybe I realize how that might have come across, but that wasn't intentional. So I apologize, for example, for the way it landed or how I treated you, and I apologize for the ways uh, you know everything went on. So it's kind of that's still vulnerability, and or it's that's a level of for me that's a level of honesty, right? And especially in leadership, build a culture of mutual respect. Yeah, and sometimes it's not just about the apology, but it's about clarifying the value and showing over time that you're still someone that they can really rely on, right? They can trust. And so um, um, I make that it's kind of like a conscious effort for me to consistently show up and keep my word, follow up through, and treat that person with the same respect every single day. So even if things still feel a bit fragile, because it's not going to be done overnight, it's for me, trust is never rebel through force or I'll say famine, let's say formality. Yeah, it's rebel through genuine connections, vulnerability, and also consistency. So yeah, and I don't just want people to follow me, as a leader. I want them to feel like safe with me. So it's about creating that safe environment. Um, that's what also built a great team. Like what Lilian did, I'm at this stage, I'm not coming in as your manager. I'm coming in as Lilian. I just want to listen. The goal here is to get the problem resolved, keep us making everybody to be productive, because in an environment where there's chaos and all those things, we can't really move forward. So for me, that's what really builds legacy: a great team and a powerful organization. So yeah, that would be my response to building trust after a conflict. Thank you.
I love that the follow-up piece. I think it's so important that you said, it's not just having that difficult conversation, but that follow-up part. How did that person feel and checking in? And that's it's such an important step, like when we have hard conversations, to follow up later. How did it land for that person? And
Yeah.
how are they doing after the fact, right? Because
Exactly.
sometimes things don't dial in in our band. It takes time. Just like you're saying, building trust it's a journey, right? You got to continue to build on it and not take it for granted. Thank you, Danielle, for that
You're
response.
welcome.
Yeah. All right, let me come to Chris. I think I saw something pop up I think Gabriel and Miranda responded to Chris's question. Maybe I'll come to Gabby since Lilian and Danielle just spoke, and then if you both want to chime in, please feel free to. The question from Chris, Gabby, I'll send this to you. Once you've heard out all parties involved and have identified the root cause or pathway to resolution, how heavy do you value your second opinion regarding your findings or a game plan before taking action?
That's a really good question. So much of it is context dependent, but I think you absolutely take into account like another party. So, for example, like we talked a little bit about HR before, like if it's a human resources related, don't assume you know. Always double check your facts, especially when it comes to human resources, legal, financial repercussions. Like, so if there's, yeah, like on that note of financial, like double check, go talk to somebody. Um, so when there's situations like that, depending again on the situation, involve like in a workplace, like involve a supervisor or somebody above if that's appropriate again. Um, I'll like balance that all with like there's also like so again like be understanding of your like bias, but it's also like you could be really like you could not be so close to the situation. You have to trust your gut. So sometimes like taking too much advice can make things, first of all, it can prolong the situation. You don't want to do that. And the second is you've done all this fact finding to go back and talk to somebody, maybe like a trusted, if you don't have a supervisor, let's say you're an entrepreneur, like having a trusted coach or somebody else that you can talk that out with. But ultimately there's a piece there around like trusting your instinct. And somebody said this to me a long time ago, and it's helped me in so many situations in life, is like go with your values. So think about what those values are. If you're stuck, like look at that because we're in a conversation about leadership. You're a leader. You have to make decisions too. So it's always a balance. So much of it is context dependent, but also experience dependent. Like what's your comfort level? And if you need consultation, like go for it. Don't feel like you have to keep it all inside either. There's a lot of people out there that you can trust. Hopefully that answers the question and gives enough
Mhm.
info.
A thumbs up. You got a thumbs up. So we're
Alrighty.
good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna actually just pause for a second. Does anyone in the audience want to ask a question without putting it in the chat? Feel free to raise your hand or you can turn your mic on and speak. I'll pause for about a minute here. And if there's no questions, we'll move on to the next part of our discussion. We can practice with the silence and space. Okay, Mamta, go for it. Go for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think lots of great conversations. So thank you for all the leaders who are sharing your experiences. So my question is, so when we're talking about conflict resolution, so this might be a challenging question. I get that. Like, when do we know that, okay, this conflict might not be able to resolve and we walk away? Because there are conflicts at workplaces, because I have also worked in big organizations. So oftentimes it doesn't seem like, so I feel like there's a lot of threads when we are resolving conflict, because some messages might get filtered. Has that ever happened? And what do you do when you hit a roadblock, like a wall? Do you take a step back or do you still go further? Yeah, I hope that makes sense, that question.
It does. It does. Thank you, Mamta. I'm just making notes here, and maybe we can come to Miranda. I'm just kind of doing with like who I haven't spoken in a while. So I'll shoot this to you, Miranda. So when do you know a conflict cannot be resolved? Has it happened to you, and what do you do? Mamta, I hope I got that right in the summary.
You did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Important and uncomfortable question. We are taught as leaders that all conflicts must be fixed and we must address everything and with enough tools and enough effort. But sometimes it's just not going to go the way that we hoped. It doesn't mean that we have failed. It means that we've recognized the limits of what's available right now to us. I think there's turning points and cues to look for to see if there can be resolution. Is there a mutual willingness? Are one or both parties open, or are they curious to possibly engage? We don't want to force a resolution. That can often cause more damage than good. Also, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in the next section too, is the culture that we live in. Is it a psychologically safe, emotionally safe space where people can have these conversations about conflict? Sometimes the healthiest option is just to create some distance for folks. Walking away doesn't mean that we're giving up or we're giving up on growth. It just means we're acknowledging that sometimes the repair is going to take longer, more space, more pause might be needed, and more maybe individual work needs to happen on one or both ends. We want to make sure that we're protecting everybody's energy and integrity and well-being.
Mamta, are you content with that?
Absolutely. I think.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Miranda, for the response. Well, I'll leave it open for another question. And then, the next part is giving and receiving difficult feedback in the workplace. Okay, I just saw something come up. Let me just make sure I have this. I got to scroll. I haven't been looking at the chat. Do you have, okay. So question from Carolina. Hi, Carolina. So do you have suggestions for young leaders on how to navigate team distress that may stem from lack of trust on your capabilities and years of experience? Ooh, yeah, that's hot. And that's a very complex one. I love it. Gabriel, do you want to take that one away?
Yeah. Sorry, my brain just completely
That's
farted.
okay. You want me to read it again? I can read it.
Please read it again.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like
no
there was a
doubt.
loud truck coming by right at that moment, and I was like, yes, okay.
I want to read it again, actually.
Thank you.
Do you have suggestions for young leaders on how to navigate team distress that may stem from lack of trust on your capabilities and years of experience? So, if I'm getting this correctly, Carolina, this is from the leader's perspective. You can give a thumbs up. Okay. Go for it, Gabriel.
Wow, yeah. They stem from lack of trust. Thank you for writing it out. That's great. Um,
Awesome.
Gosh, I mean, if there is, I want to know this as well. I think it is very difficult and it is a case by case sort of situation. But I think um, the lesson that I've learned is balancing authenticity with your team and transparency, which is really important. But also there's some information that like employees can't handle knowing, like if you're in a budget crisis, like telling them that is not conducive, right? Is not helpful unless it's like an absolute desperate situation. So I would say like the main thing is you do need to have transparency. You need to be clear, but you don't need to give specifics, of things. You can be like, hey, we're struggling with some things right now. I got it. I got a plan for dealing with this, just make sure that there's always like if you're giving them information, you let them know that you have a plan in place and you're working on it and you're only giving it just as an FYI. If they have any questions, feel free to ask it, but don't volunteer too much information, and only when necessary. It sounds like there's a question there. Couple
Yeah.
questions.
That's a really great point, though. I know
Yeah.
Miranda and Gabby are like, we got to jump in on this. I love this. So excited. Okay.
So
Oh, we
yeah,
got
I just
three.
wanted to say one thing that transparency is so important, but then too much transparency can create a problem that you actually don't have. So I love the fact that you mentioned that, Gabriel. I'm gonna go to, I think Miranda, you put your hand up first. Woo, okay.
oh
We
yeah,
like
I
this
also
question,
wanted to say
Carolina. We like this question. Go
I'll
for it.
I'll just be quick here. I know that I look a lot younger than I am, so I have definitely encountered assumptions about my capabilities or authorities before I even open my mouth, even though I'm in my 40s. Uh, I think what I would say is don't try to perform your way into credibility. You want to build the trust through the consistency, through the presence, through being clear, being kind. Again, it's that if we if people perceive us, that's on them, how they perceive us. We can't control their reactions, but we can show up with our values, to Gabby's speaking to my heart here, leading, modeling behaviors, and just being clear, kind. You can even say something like, I'm newer to this role. Some of you have more experience than I do. I want to learn from what's around here, but I'm also here to hold us accountable so that we're moving in the direction together. So you're leading with that curiosity in mind. You're being steady, not defensive, and you own what you don't know. You don't want to just pretend that you know everything if you are the youngest person around. Oh, I think you're muted, Rasie.
Gabby, you can take it away.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, Miranda, you so much of what you said I agree with. And I just wanted to say, like, I think Carolina, first of all, that's like a question I had in my mind like all throughout my 20s, and I'm just recently entering my 30s. So I totally relate. And it's first of all, I will say when that comes across, it's sometimes an indicator for anxiety in your team. And again, another wonderful piece of advice that somebody gave me a long time ago was like, as a leader, you're responsible for containing that anxiety. So first of all, know maybe that's like an indication of like some anxiety or uncertainty, and that's okay. Like teams face that. That happens. And then the other thing is though, like kind of to Miranda's point, is just that's okay. Like you don't have to know everything. And the reality is like young leaders have their space. Like they can also innovate. They can make changes. Like so lean heavily into that. Like so what? I am young. Like I'm here to learn. I don't know. Do you? Like lean into that. Like and especially if you're new to a role, like I recently was new to a role, I'd be like, "Excuse me, like I don't know and I'm coming to you. I trust you. You've know like you've been here for 10, 20 years, what have you. So lean into people that are saying that and bring them in closer. And then the last thing I'll offer, like, because I came home crying sometimes when situations were coming up to like a boiling point. My dad, my dad gave me the best advice. And it's like when moment, like to Gabriel's point around, like there's sometimes too much transparency. Keep a stone face. Practice it in the mirror if you have to. When people give you some harsh criticism, maybe sometimes as a young leader, I know I'm guilty of it and it has to do with my personality. I show everything on my face, all my emotions. Practice if that's something that's happening for you, I don't know. But if it is happening, practice your stone face in the mirror or something and get used to that. Like you're gonna get, as a leader, you're gonna get criticism. Try to let it roll off your back. Try.
Ooh, that's such a great advice. I actually had a manager say the same thing to me, Rasie. You need to go home, look in the mirror and practice everything that you're saying to your staff, what your facial expressions are, because you can tell everything that you're feeling. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Gabby. All right, Lilian.
Uh, I love this question because I have had this problem since I started my leadership journey. Even until today, my team has 30, 20 years of experience. Some of them are double my age. So it's always been an issue that I've had to face. I second what Gabby said. I second what Miranda said, being also thinking about what does competence mean? Because part of it is, yes, maybe your team may be treating you that way, but the other part is you may believe that you lack competence because you're younger. And there are skills that you come with. You don't have to have years of experience in so and so to be a leader. So lean into what are your strengths and how you contribute to the team. You need to convince yourself first so that you can control your facial expressions or your emotions when they come up. But an important thing that happened for me is when I made the shift from thinking of leadership as authority to influence. And I started reflecting on how do people gain influence with me. For me, for someone to gain influence with me, I have to see that they care about my story and my experience, my expertise. I have to trust that they're there to support me and they're committed to this. So how can you show your team or model that so that you can gain influence with them and understand that it would take long? Just because you're called a manager or director of this doesn't mean they're going to respect you right away. So understanding that you need to actively build that trust and think about how you can gain influence with people. And also, I think looking at it as a gift, the fact that there's so many problems that I never thought of how to solve, and the perspectives that I've gained from people who've worked for so long, like it's been such valuable learning for me. So right now I'm even excited. I don't want to be in a team that's actually younger than me. I want to be in a team with more expertise because you gain so much learning, you gain so much perspective. So even shifting it to something that you appreciate, that I have people I can lean into their expertise, but also like Gabby said, coming into it with that vulnerability and being like, hey, I'm here to learn. I don't know it all, and you don't have to know it all, and remove that pressure. And I find that when you're vulnerable with confidence, which sounds like a bit of a juxtaposition, it actually creates that space for people to be like, oh, okay, she's humble, she's here to learn. Like, so you need to be vulnerable, but also with confidence. Don't come in like scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, hey, everyone, I am your new whatever position. I am here to learn. I don't know it all. This is what I bring to the table, but I am looking forward to, learning and leaning into expertise. Like, own it and carry it with you, and don't put yourself down. Like, you deserve to be in that position. You need to look at yourself every day and say, I deserve to be here. I have the skills and I am able to learn whatever I don't know right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Mic drop. Oh my goodness. That was such a great question and such incredible responses. That's really awesome. One thing I want to add that worked for me really, like very effective having one-on-one with the people on your team, you can really get to know them and go in with the intention, I want to get to know you beyond the working space. Like, what else can I learn about you? That helped me a lot, like in my leadership journey. And Caroline is saying thank you for Carolina. Sorry. Oh, awesome. Awesome. She's good. She feels good. She's got what she wanted. That's awesome. All right. So the
Rasie,
next, oh yeah. Yep.
sorry,
Another
we do have
question?
another question.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
One
I just
second.
received another one.
Oh,
If you want me
perfect.
to read it.
Okay, I got it. Is it how long is it worth investing? Okay. All right, Danielle, I'm gonna come to you with this question. How long is it worth investing in an employee who lacks cultural fit, hoping they'll change, or is it better to give up? That's a really great question. I can read it again if you like, or you want me to read it
Yeah,
again?
yeah.
How long is it worth investing in an employee who lacks cultural fit, hoping they will change, or is it better to give up?
Okay, I would say it's never too long. I mean, there's not a time limit or time frame for investing into someone. I always think it starts with the person itself. Are they ready to learn? I would say you have to give it a try as a leader, you know, because a leader, right, is someone who is also building other leaders who are even better off than himself. So yeah, so I would say we would. It's a journey. It's a journey. It's a long journey. So as long as the person is in the team, because remember, if if we can uh, putting in that investment, it's for the good of the company, it's for the benefit of the company. So I would say, like you said, it's an investment. But first of all, if the person is willing to learn and to grow, it's great because really it gives that possibility for everybody to learn and to grow. So it's not about giving up. It's just give a try first, and because we don't all know it, so if they're really are willing to learn, definitely, yeah, why not? So don't give up as a leader. As a leader, we want to see other people in the team perform, or outperform. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll say keep training, keep teaching them on how to outperform, giving them, because what is sure is that whenever, like, no matter the number of years of experience you have, maybe as a new hire in the team, you would still need to learn about the team culture, about everything happening in there. So, and you learn by having the other people in the team or the leader, training you along on how things are being done and how you can work along to make sure we achieve the common goals we are all pursuing. So, yeah, that's it.
I love that. They need to be willing. They need to be willing. It's one thing, because if they're not, whoo, you're in for not a good party.
Of course.
Does anyone else want to chime in when this person is not willing, right? If they're not willing, what do we do? Because I'm sure the person who asked this question. Yeah, go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah. This one's really tough. This one's really tough. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer for this as well, but I would say, like, once you've committed to hiring someone, if it's actually a hire, you want to, like, give it as long as possible, 3 to 4 months is usually my time. If it's a contractor, lately, what I do is I don't actually hire. I contract first, test the relationship. I'll usually hire two contractors at the same time for the same job, and then get them to do that same job concurrently, and then see which one is a better fit, so that I'm kind of testing that out at the same time. That's been the thing that's been the most effective for me. But like when I was hiring people, I would keep them on for 3 or 4 months, and then if it wasn't working, then I'd offboard them.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because I read somewhere from a very, renowned uh, entrepreneur. He said something that was quite amazing. He said, "I can't say I can work with you until I've worked with you." So as Gabriel said, 3 to 4 months is good. So I think that was perfect. Yeah. So this month is trying to find out if you can definitely, if they are open to learning, and if you can really work with them. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both for that response. Go ahead, Lilian.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this question is an interesting one, and I think for a lot of leaders, we don't like the decision that's at the end of this when someone isn't willing and doesn't want to learn the termination part. We all don't like that conversation. So I think like Gabby said, as well as Danielle, making sure that you've set them up for success and they have the resources and all the support that they need and have consistent check-in. That probation period or the 3 month period, depending on what business or work setup that you have, is for those regular check-in, is for you setting the expectation and having clarity and making sure you're identifying issues that they're having. But what happens then when the employee is not so great, but they think they're great? That's, I think, where that's the hard part. and I've had a situation like that where it's like you're communicating, you're giving resources, but they just won't hear it. And it happens. And I think there has to be clarity on, I'm having these check-ins with you. This is the concern that I have, and this may be the consequences if things don't change or get better. And making sure that they know that they can be terminated or whatever happens at the end of that, making sure that they know the consequence, and then seeing if that would change their behavior. If that doesn't change, I think you need to have that clear and empathetic conversation around letting them go, because culture fit affects the whole team dynamics. And if it just doesn't fit, it's not something that you should ignore, definitely. So I think once you've made sure that on your side you've offered everything that you can and they're not willing to take it in, I think sometimes you need to also go with your intuition, like Gabby mentions, like you need to, and when you feel like it's just off and I've tried all that I can, make the tough decisions sometimes and let them go.
I'm struggling. Go ahead, Gabby. Go ahead. Thank you, Lilian.
Thank you. No, I was almost like Lilian. I just really liked what you said, and I wanted to like add in my voice, maybe like I maybe slightly different, but a different take on this. I don't wait that long. I don't like. I think for me, it's if it's where, especially in a situation like Lilian says, like where it's like they think they're doing well, but you're like they're not, and you can't seem to work it out. Like I've made decisions sometimes within a week. Sometimes you just know. Like I'm not saying that's all the time, and that feels bad. Like I'm not saying that's like, oh, like I'm this leader that knows what they're doing. It feels bad because if you're the hiring manager, you made the decision and then you're owning up to the fact that it wasn't the right call. Like, and again, like it goes back to like we're human. We're not gonna make the right call. Not every job is for every kind of person. Like you kind of, if it's not a values alignment, like it's not, culture fit, but then there's also values. There's also like there's other pieces, but sometimes you really do have to trust your instinct. And what's the value? Like you kind of have to ask yourself, like, what's the value for everybody? Like job loss can mean a lot of things for a lot of different people, or especially around like loss of confidence. So by prolonging that can also come with its own territory of like, so we try to do the best we can and then lead with empathy, but sometimes you just know and and just pull the plug. I'm not saying that's my favorite way, but sometimes there are situations where you have to do it. So sometimes I don't give it that long, but again, so specific. Trust your gut.
Because we're in leadership roles to do the hard part, right? If that's, I think one of you mentioned it, we have to make decisions. Like that's why we're in that role.
You
It's
have
our responsibility. Yeah.
to do hard things.
Yeah. No doubt. Okay, so we have this one last question. Miranda, did you want to take this one? I'll read it out loud just in case the other panelists want to chime in on it. And this will be our last question. So it's renewing and reviewing a living culture from Chris. This is from Christopher Hines. Renewing and reviewing a living culture statement annually is beneficial in my view. When hiring an employee, you decided that they aligned with the culture. What happened? Who changed? Do they realign towards each other, or is it time to walk away? You want me to read it again?
I wonder if it's a question or more of, is that a statement?
Yeah, if you want to chime in on that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Christopher. Yeah, good job. I really love the idea of those annual reviews because you are going to have more people coming in. You're going to have more people leaving. You yourself as leaders, your leadership team is going to be evolving. New pressures in the workplace are going to be changing. That changes the culture. So anytime when you're hiring an employee and you are reviewing that cultural statement, who are we, what do we stand for, what are our values or mission or purpose, does it still speak to the individual if they've been there a long time? And like, I think it's brilliant, Christopher. I think we should be doing more of that. And even when you're letting an employee go, that's another time to be like, to do a postmortem a little bit and say, what were we living our values? Were we living the culture? If someone is leaving the organization, they're not being let go, but they're leaving on their own accord, that's also a good time to check in and see what's up with the culture. Are we still living our statement? Sorry. Oh, yes. And Lilian has more to say on that too.
Yeah, and there's you made I saw Lillian's statement kind of pop up, like we actually live in it, because sometimes it's on the wall, right? It's on the wall and it's kind of just taking up space, but is it actually like happening for us? And then there was another part where someone mentioned about values. I think Gabby mentioned that, and Lilian echoed on that as well. Are we in alignment with the values, right? Like, is this employee living this value, and do we need to change it? Because sometimes when like you said, Miranda, when our employees change, like, who we're working with, we need to realign, just like Chris said in the comment there in the chat. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pause there with the questions. I'm going to come back to our panelists. I just want to share something quickly with our audience before people drop off. So one thing that you can do, so we've had this discussion, this conversation to help you navigate hard conversations with confidence and empathy. There is a complimentary workshop that we're doing in the fall. You're welcome to register and join us and build on this toolbox. And in the workshop is very interactive with step by step, and you get to interact with other people in the room as well and practice the different tools, the different processes we're going to share with you to help you navigate hard conversations. It is worth having. It's a yes for me to this question. And then also when you hop out of Zoom, there is a survey that will pop up on your screen. And please fill it out. We want to improve. I want to improve. Jay wants to improve. We want to do better at this event. And the structure that we did for part 2 of this event this year, it's based on feedback we got from last year. So we want to do better. I want to do better. So please share your honest feedback. And we'll also send an email to you with all the information. So all of our panelists' information, their bio, so that you can get in touch with them at your convenience. Awesome. So I'm going to come back to all our panelists. If you can share one line, just one sentence for our leaders to take away with them as we wrap up this panel discussion. Anyone can go first.
Stick to your values.
It's a bit, can I share 2 sentences? This is something I heard from someone and completely changed how I approach things, is that leadership is not how people experience you. It is how they experience themselves by being led by you. And I always think about that all the time.
Yeah, I'll go here. For me, leadership is all about being authentic with yourself and authentic with others so that they feel that level of trust. It's the same thing when you're trying to create a relationship with a client as well, or with anyone. You want to create a foundation of trust.
I will say leadership isn't about being perfect, but it's about taking a pause and making sure that you are responding, not reacting.
Danielle?
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's all
So
good.
I
You're
would
like, who's
say,
going next?
okay, I would say, for me, trust isn't demanded. It's earned through consistency, humility, and how well you make people feel around you, and value.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. This is what I'm going to leave everybody with. When you know better, do better. When you know better, do better. That's my motto. And thank you all so much for joining us. This was a blast. I invite you to connect with each of our panelists. Let them know, give them the feedback. What resonated with you, from what you heard from them. And again, this is how we know, okay, this information I shared is very valuable to this person. I need to share it more so that I can reach more leaders out there. And Jay, thank you for manning the chat. Really appreciate you. Couldn't have done it without you. And for all our panelists, thank you for saying yes to having this conversation with me on stage. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to collaborating with you on in other things. And our audience, thank you for taking up space, asking questions, listening in, taking notes. We really hope you receive more than what you joined us for. All right. Thank you so much and good night. Oh, if our panelists can say back, please. Thanks.
Let me